Okay, so buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the origins of life on Earth. But we're not talking about your typical textbook stuff here. We're going to be exploring excerpts from the Urantia book. And it claims to reveal the real story, the actual story, of how life began on our planet. And let me tell you, it's full of surprises.
It really is fascinating how the Urantia book presents Earth, or Urantia as they call it, as this, well, kind of like a cosmic experiment. They call it a decimal planet.
This decimal planet.
Yeah. So picture this, a cosmic lab, right? Where these advanced beings, they call them life carriers, designed and cultivated life in ways that you wouldn't find anywhere else in, well, at least in our corner of the universe.
So you're saying it's not just that, life exists here, it's that it's totally unique?
Yeah, that's a pretty big claim. And it gets wilder.
Okay, wilder how?
So try to picture Earth like 550 million years ago. Like, forget the continents as we know them today. It was all one giant landmass.
Wow.
All submerged under this massive primordial ocean. And the atmosphere, well, let's just say you wouldn't want to breathe it.
I'm guessing no lush forests or, dinosaurs roaming around back then, huh?
Nope, not even close. Just a whole lot of water and some seriously unbreathable air. But here's where those life carriers come in. They were, playing the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to plant the seeds of life.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Plant the seeds of life. What do you mean by that?
So instead of just, one Garden of Eden, picture three. Three very specific locations in these ancient seas where the life carriers actually, well, they planted the very first seeds of life.
3 different seeds. Okay, I'm really curious now. Why 3?
That's one of the most interesting parts in the Urantia book, I think. It's like they knew, you see, that this massive supercontinent, it wasn't going to stay put. They understood, plate tectonics.
Plate tectonics.
Yeah, that whole slow dance of continents across the Earth's surface.
Oh, right.
So they were basically like cosmic gardeners, making sure that as these continents drifted, each landmass, each one, would have the potential for life to develop.
So it's like they were setting up these multiple starting points so life could spread out and become all diverse across the globe.
Exactly. Pretty smart strategy when you think about it. Because those continental shifts, they weren't exactly, casual rearrangements.
You know what? You're right. Just look at a map. All those mountains, those valleys, it's like the Earth went through some crazy growth spurt or something. Was it always that dramatic?
Oh, absolutely. The Urantia book describes these huge, massive land masses, all driven by the Earth's mantle, colliding over millions and millions of years. Imagine the pressure, folding and uplifting the land, creating mountain ranges, like the Himalayas we see today, pushing up these vast plateaus, even carving out entire ocean basins.
So every time I see a mountain, I'm actually looking at the aftermath of these ancient, continental collisions. Wow.
Yeah.
That really puts things into a whole new perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
And, it shows you how everything's connected, how it all fits together. Because those tectonic movements, they weren't just shaping the landscape, right? They were directly influencing how life itself developed. Think about it. The formation of shallow seas, the erosion of all those mountains creating these fertile valleys, it all played a part in creating all the diverse environments where life could actually take hold and flourish.
Man, it's just incredible to think about those very first, single-celled organisms in those ancient waters, like the very, very beginning of life as we know it. But
Right.
how did we go from those tiny little life forms to all the incredible plants and animals that we see today?
Well, that's where things start to get even more interesting. According to the Urantia book, about 450 million years ago, there was this dramatic shift. The first, simple animal life forms, they just kind of appeared.
Hold on, appear, you mean not gradually, not through, slow evolution?
That's what's wild. The book says it wasn't gradual. It says they were suddenly there,
Yeah.
fully formed.
Wow, okay. That's a totally different picture than what we usually hear. So how does the Urantia book explain that? How that's even possible?
Well, it talks about this process of genetic mutations. And these mutations, they led to the sudden appearance of these new species. But before you go thinking, magic wand or something.
Right.
The book, it makes it clear that this is all natural, no supernatural stuff going on. What it's suggesting is that the basic building blocks of life, they've got this potential, this hidden potential for these big sudden leaps in complexity.
Okay, so maybe not, magic, like you said, but still, that's a pretty radical idea. It's like saying that hidden deep down in our DNA is this possibility for these massive transformations Does the book say anything about, like, what might trigger these genetic mutations?
That's something scientists are still trying to figure out even today.
Mm-hmm.
And the Urantia book doesn't really give us any easy answers there.
Yeah.
But it does talk a lot about the environment, how important the environment is in shaping evolution.
Right.
Remember that thick atmosphere we talked about earlier? Lots of carbon dioxide.
Yeah. Not exactly breathable, right?
Yeah. Perfect for early plant life, but not so much for animals.
So how did we get to the air we breathe today? Did the life carriers step in again, make a few more tweaks?
Well, they definitely set the stage, but the process they describe, it's actually pretty natural. Imagine this.
Mm-hmm.
The sun, right? Essential for life, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was also bombarding Earth with all this, like, intense radiation, bad stuff.
Yikes. Yeah.
But high above the Earth, this, like, crucial shield was forming, the ozone layer.
Oh, okay, yeah, the ozone layer. I've heard of that. It's important, right? But remind me again how that all works.
So picture this delicate balance up in the atmosphere. This thin layer of gas, the ozone layer, acts like, well, kind of like a giant sunscreen. It filters out all that really harmful radiation from the sun.
Okay.
But it still lets in enough sunlight for, life to do its thing.
So it's like the Earth had its own, I don't know, force field or something against all those harmful rays. Talk about convenient timing.
It was essential. And that's what the Urantia book really emphasizes, this balance. Because if it were too thick, well, we wouldn't get the good stuff, the ultraviolet rays that life needs. And if it were too thin, well,
it probably wouldn't be here, right?
let's just say this conversation would be a little different.
That's for sure. It really makes you appreciate being able to, breathe easily. We take it for granted, but it's all thanks to this whole intricate dance of, well, cosmic forces and, I don't know, atmospheric chemistry. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
It really is.
But going back to those 3 seeds of life for a sec, the book, it mentions that life on Earth, it's unique, that no other planet, at least in our part of the universe, has life exactly like ours. Why is that?
That is a really key point. The Urantia book, it stresses that the life carriers didn't just, transport life. They formulated it here on Earth. It says that, each decimal planet is its own, unique expression of life. And that's all shaped by the conditions on that specific planet.
So are you saying that if we ever do encounter, life out there beyond Earth, it's not going to be anything like us?
Not if this book is right. It basically suggests that the universe is way more creative, way more diverse than we can even imagine.
Whoa. That's pretty exciting and a little scary at the same time, right? We tend to think of life, even alien life, as, kind of similar to ourselves. But what if our experiences are just a tiny, tiny part of what's actually possible?
Exactly. And that brings up another really important idea from the Urantia book. It's this idea that while the life carriers set the stage for life here on Earth, the specific forms it took, they were, shaped by a kind of a mix of design and chance. They created the conditions, but they didn't try to control every single detail of how life would develop.
So even with a master plan, there was still room for, improvisation, for the unexpected to happen.
That's the idea. And that's what makes this whole concept of Earth as this life modification world, this grand experiment, so fascinating. Yeah. It's like the life carriers, they were saying, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when we combine these elements, these forces, this potential for life, and let it run its course.
That is a cool way to think about it. They were conducting this experiment with all these different factors and then just observing how life would adapt and change over time.
Right. And it really makes you think about our place in all of this. We're not just, passive passengers on this planet. We're part of something much, much bigger. This ongoing experiment of, really, of cosmic proportions.
Wow, I like that. Okay, so let's say, just for a second, that the Urantia book's account of all of this, that it's a real possibility. How does that change how we view our responsibility to this planet?
Well, I think it definitely raises the stakes, wouldn't you say? Because if life on Earth really is totally unique, like a one-of-a-kind thing in this vast universe, then protecting it, that becomes way more important. It's not just about, saving ourselves. It's about safeguarding something truly precious and irreplaceable.
Man, that's a heavy thought. But it's also incredibly, empowering. It means we're not just caretakers of this planet. We're guardians of something truly extraordinary. So we're like living in the experiment right here, right now. But if each of these decimal planets, if each one is unique like this, does that mean we're alone in the universe?
That's the big question, right?
Right.
And the Urantia book, it definitely has some interesting things to say about that. Like, it says that while life on other planets, it might not be anything like we'd expect. It might be, well, just as diverse and just as, I don't know, just as incredible as life here and just as connected to its planet.
So no, like little green men, you're saying we might find life that can handle like crazy temperatures
Yeah.
or breathe a totally different kind of air.
It might not even be on a planet like ours. Think about it. Life forms that can exist in, I don't know, the crushing pressure of a gas giant or in total darkness, places we wouldn't even think to look.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, right? Like our whole definition of life, it's based on what we see here. But what if that's just a tiny little piece of what's really out there?
Exactly. And that's what I find so fascinating about the Urantia book. It really challenges us to expand our thinking, to imagine possibilities we might never have considered otherwise.
So where does that leave us then? If the Urantia book is right, and Earth is just one version of life out of, well, an infinite number of possibilities, what does it all mean for us here and now?
It's a big question, no doubt. For me, I think it highlights how important it is to keep asking questions, to never stop exploring and being curious about the universe and our place in it. It reminds us that we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
It's humbling,
For sure.
but also pretty inspiring. We've got this amazing opportunity to study life right here in all its
Mhm.
forms, to try to understand it and, to appreciate how everything is connected.
And who knows? Maybe the more we learn about how life evolved here on Earth, the more we'll learn about the potential for life in other parts of the universe. It's a pretty amazing thought.
It really is. It makes you wonder what those life carriers would think if they could see us now, this little experiment of theirs. Do you think they'd be surprised by what they see?
I don't know, maybe. Or maybe they'd see all the potential they unleashed, the way life always finds a way, always adapts. It's a powerful force.
It really is. Well, I've got to say, I'm so glad we did this deep dive. It's really changed how I see the world and, well, the universe, really.
Me too. It's a good reminder that even with all we know, we're still figuring things out. The story of life, it's still being written.
Exactly. There's always more to discover. Well, that's it for this deep dive into the origins of life on Earth as told by the Urantia book. We explored a universe of possibilities, ancient oceans, and of course the power of life itself to, adapt and thrive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and, well, never stop being amazed by the world around you.